He asked me if I liked this version of Batman, but it was the way he wore the suit that made me realize a truth about my heart. You ever hear something so dumb and beautiful at the same time it rearranges your entire reality? That was me, 17 years old, standing in a high school gym that smelled like Axe body spray and regret, when Liam Monroe, the guy who once ate glue in 4th grade and somehow evolved into a teenage Greek god, asked me that question. He stood in front of me, completely serious, in a homemade Batman costume. Not the polished, cinematic kind. No, this was stitched by hand, duct-taped at the seams, with a cape that fluttered like a shower curtain in a storm. But he wore it like it was armor, like it meant something. And maybe it did. I was dressed as a generic zombie football player, more blood than brain. I hadn't even wanted to come to the Halloween dance, but Jayla, my best friend and perpetual chaos machine, dragged me out of the house with promises of free candy and potential eye contact with human beings. And now here I was, standing face to face with Liam freaking Monroe, watching him shift awkwardly from foot to foot in that stupid perfect costume, asking me if I liked this version of Batman. I opened my mouth to answer something sarcastic, something safe, but the words never came out. Because the truth was, it wasn't about Batman. It was about how his voice cracked just a little when he asked. How his eyes searched my face like my answer could make or break something inside him. How his fingers fidgeted with the corner of his cape like a lifeline. It was about how, in that single breathless moment, I saw him, really saw him, and in doing so, caught a glimpse of myself I'd been avoiding for years. He looked down and started to turn away, mumbling, "It's dumb, I know." "No," I said, "maybe too fast. You look awesome." He paused. His shoulders relaxed, just a bit. Then he gave me a smile so shy and radiant I felt it physically. Like sunlight through a storm cloud. And I felt something shift in my chest, something terrifying and undeniable. I was in love with Liam Monroe. Not in a metaphorical, maybe someday way. In a right here, right now, oh god I'm screwed kind of way. And I didn't even know if he liked guys. The next few days blurred into a mess of awkward silences, stolen glances, and stomach-lurching anxiety. At school, Liam didn't mention the dance. Not once. He still sat at our usual lunch table, still joked with the guys on the basketball team, but something was different. Quieter. More careful. And I didn't know what to do with that. Jayla, of course, picked up on it immediately. She cornered me by the vending machines during 3rd period. "You look like someone kicked your puppy and then married your ex. What's going on?" "Nothing," I lied. "You suck at lying. Is this about Liam?" I stared at the blinking lights of the vending machine like they held answers. "I think I like him." Jayla blinked. Like, I whispered. She whistled. "Took you long enough. You knew." "Dude, I've known since sophomore year when he asked to borrow your pencil and you forgot how to breathe for 15 seconds. Cool. So what do I do now?" She shrugged. "Figure out if he likes you back. And if he doesn't, at least you'll know. But hiding it forever? That'll eat you alive." I knew she was right. Still, easier said than done. A week later, Liam and I found ourselves alone in the school theater. We were both on set crew for the fall play, him on lights, me on props. The cast had just left for rehearsal, and the stage was bathed in the soft, ambient glow of overhead bulbs. He was adjusting something on the catwalk when I blurted, "Hey, about the dance." He froze. Then slowly, he climbed down the ladder and sat next to me on the edge of the stage. "Yeah. You asked if I liked your costume. And I didn't really answer." He looked at me. Quiet. Patient. "I liked it," I said. "But not because of Batman. Because it was you. Owning it. Showing up as yourself." His throat bobbed. "I didn't think anyone noticed." I noticed, I said. He exhaled, a shaky breath. Can I tell you something kinda insane? Only if it's crazy romantic or completely illegal. He laughed. That night I wasn't trying to impress anyone. Just you. Silence fell like a curtain. Then his hand brushed mine. I didn't pull away. The thing about first love is, it doesn't care about logic. It doesn't wait for the right time, or the right labels, or the right anything. It just crashes in, flips your world upside down, and dares you to say it out loud. And we didn't say it, not at first. We didn't call it love. We didn't even call it dating. We just started being. Late-night texts that turned into phone calls. Study sessions that turned into sharing childhood secrets. Movie marathons where his leg would graze mine and stay there. But in public, we were still just friends. It wasn't shame. It was fear. Fear of what people would say. Of what our parents would think. Of how the world might change if we dared to name this thing between us. And then someone else named it for us. It started with a photo. Someone had snapped a picture of us backstage during rehearsals. Liam had been laughing at something I said, head thrown back, his hand resting casually on my knee. I hadn't even realized he'd done it until I saw the image. The photo made its way to the school's anonymous gossip page on Instagram by morning. Captioned, Batman and his boyfriend? Eyes. I stared at it on my cracked phone screen, heart thudding like a drum. The comments were a wildfire. Wait, is this real? Kinda cute, not gonna lie. Yo, this better not be a joke. Damn. Didn't peg Monroe for a fairy. The last one gutted me. I didn't go to school that day. I couldn't. My brain kept replaying that moment, Liam's smile, his fingers brushing mine now frozen in time, interpreted, dissected, mocked. By lunchtime, J-Lo was pounding on my door. You didn't answer my texts, she said when I finally let her in. Are you okay? No, I said. I'm not. She sat beside me on the bed. Look, I saw the post. And yeah, some of those comments are straight up trash. But some of them weren't. Some of them were kind. I shook my head. It's not just about the comments. Then what is it? What if Liam hates me now? I whispered. J-Lo was quiet for a long moment. He won't. You don't know that. I know he looked at you like you hung the damn moon. Liam didn't show up to rehearsal either. My stomach sank deeper with every passing hour. By the time the final bell rang, I was certain he'd never speak to me again. And then he texted me, roof of the science building. Now. I sprinted. When I reached the rooftop, he was sitting on the ledge, legs dangling dangerously over the edge, hoodie pulled over his head like armor. He didn't look at me. I'm sorry, I said. About the photo. About all of it. It's not your fault, he replied quietly. Someone invaded our moment. I thought maybe you'd be mad. Or freaked out. Or. He turned to me then, eyes fierce and sad. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the world. Silence. Do you regret it? He asked. Which part? Us. I sat beside him, close enough to feel the warmth of his arm against mine. No. Not for a second. His lips parted like he wanted to say more, but he just nodded. We sat like that for a long time, quiet, together, watching the sky bruise purple with sunset. I don't want to hide anymore, he said finally. Me neither. But saying it and living it were two very different things. Coming out wasn't a single moment. It was 1,000 tiny ones, some beautiful, some terrifying, some both. It was telling Jayla and having her cry tears of joy and scream, I knew it. I freaking knew it. It was telling my mom, whose face went blank before she whispered, "Are you sure it's not just a phase?" It was Liam telling his older brother, who shrugged and said, "Cool. You still suck at Fortnite though." It was the football coach pulling Liam aside and saying, "You're still starting point guard, Monroe. Just don't make it political." It was walking down the hallway, hand brushing hand, and feeling like the walls were closing in with every stare. But it was also Liam pressing a sticky note into my locker that said, "You're braver than Batman." It was his fingers brushing mine during chemistry and the spark that followed. It was building something real, fragile, and fierce together. The first time we kissed outside of our private bubble, it was raining. Cliché, I know. But it really was. We were walking home from a late movie, our jackets soaked, shoes squeaking on the sidewalk. Neither of us spoke, both lost in the warm blur of the night. Then Liam stopped walking. "I want to kiss you," he said. I looked around. We were near the park. Empty. Quiet. But still public. "What if someone sees?" I asked. He shrugged, rain dripping from his lashes. "Then they'll see." He stepped closer. I could hear the thunder of my own heartbeat. And then he kissed me soft and certain and everything I didn't know I was starving for. When we broke apart, breathless, he laughed. "I've wanted to do that since I wore that dumb Batman suit." I smiled. That suit changed everything. We got bolder after that. Not loud. Not flashy. But seen. Holding hands at the mall. Sharing a milkshake at Pop's Diner. Sitting side by side at basketball games. And people stared, yes. Some whispered. Some rolled their eyes. But others smiled. Like maybe, just maybe, we weren't alone. There were hard days. Like when someone spray-painted FAG on Liam's locker. Like when a teacher accidentally left us out of the group photo for student council. But there were good days too. The night of the winter formal, Liam picked me up wearing a navy blue suit and a tie the color of storm clouds. He handed me a corsage navy and silver and told me I looked like a dream. No costumes. No masks. Just us. And when the DJ played our song, Heroes, by David Bowie, he pulled me onto the dance floor. People watched. And we danced anyway. But the world isn't a movie. It doesn't tie things up in a neat bow. Real life is messier. Harder. Sometimes, heartbreakingly so. Spring came. College acceptances arrived. Liam got into UCLA. Full scholarship. I got into NYU. Different coasts. Different futures. We pretended it wasn't happening for as long as we could. Clung to the moments. Drew maps in our heads of how we could make it work. But deep down, we knew. The night before graduation, we lay in the grass behind his house, watching the stars. "I don't want to lose you," I said. "You won't," he whispered. "You'll always be my first love." I turned to him, tears threatening. "That sounds like goodbye." He kissed me, soft and slow. "It's not goodbye. It's just the end of one chapter." We wrote each other every week that first year. Real letters, with stamps and ink smudges and crossed-out words. Sometimes we FaceTimed. Sometimes we didn't. Time zones and homework and new friends pulled at the fabric of us. And one day, he wrote, "I met someone. His name is Theo. He makes me laugh. But he's not you." I read the letter 3 times before I cried. Then I wrote back, "I'm happy for you. I mean it." And I did. Mostly. 3 years later, I saw him again. At Jayla's wedding, of all places. He was standing by the bar, laughing, a little older, a little broader in the shoulders. That same crooked smile. When our eyes met, something in my chest cracked wide open. We talked all night. About college. About dreams. About heartbreak. About Theo. About the boy in the Batman suit. When the party started to wind down, he looked at me and asked, "Do you think we ever had a chance?" I didn't hesitate. We had a moment. And sometimes, that's enough. He nodded, eyes glassy. Still, I wonder what it would have been like. I smiled. Probably messy. Probably beautiful. He grinned. Probably both. Time passed. The kind of time that leaves you changed, softened in some places, hardened in others. I graduated. Moved to Brooklyn. Got a studio apartment with exposed brick and terrible heating. Worked 2 part-time jobs while chasing a writing career that barely paid for instant ramen. But I was building something, not just a life, but a self I wasn't afraid to live in anymore. And Liam became a memory I could smile at without aching. Mostly. Until, one rainy afternoon in October, an envelope slid under my apartment door. No return address. Inside was a Polaroid. Liam, in the old Batman costume, somehow still too big, still ridiculous, standing on what looked like a community theater stage. Smiling. Radiant. Happy. On the back, in his handwriting, "Opening night. Wish you were here." My hands shook as I stared at it. 3 years. 3 years since we'd last spoken. Since Jayla's wedding. Since I'd convinced myself we were a closed book. But this. This was a comma, not a period. I booked a flight the next morning. It was impulsive, yes. Borderline foolish. I hadn't talked to him in years, hadn't even texted him since before the pandemic. But something inside me, old, stubborn, deeply romantic, said go. When I arrived in Los Angeles, it was golden hour. The kind of light that makes everything look like a memory in the making. I stood outside the small theater listed on the back of the photo. The Crescent stage nestled between a yoga studio and a used bookstore, the kind of place you'd walk past 100 times and never notice unless you were looking for it. I was. The front doors were open, a buzz of voices and excitement spilling out into the street. I slipped in, heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. The lights dimmed. The show started. It was a musical and offbeat, original production with too many characters and not enough budget. But none of that mattered. Because there he was. Center stage. Singing, dancing, eyes alight with something I remembered and something entirely new. He belonged up there. Not like he was performing, but like he was finally home. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I hadn't been. After the final curtain call, I lingered outside the theater. People poured out, laughing, clapping, congratulating each other. I waited, invisible in the shadows, until finally I saw him step through the side exit, still in partial costume, hair slicked with sweat. He didn't see me at first. But then that unmistakable moment. Recognition. Shock. His breath caught in his throat. He froze mid-step. And then he smiled. It was different from before. Softer. Sadder. Real. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. I held up the Polaroid. "You invited me." His eyes glistened. "I didn't know if you'd come." "Neither did I said. "But here I am." We stood in silence for a beat too long, the city humming around us. Then he walked forward and pulled me into a hug. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't desperate. It was something deeper. Familiar. Forgiven. We went to a diner. The same one we used to dream about visiting when we were 17. Neon lights, greasy fries, bottomless coffee. He ordered pancakes at midnight. I got grilled cheese. We sat in the corner booth like no time had passed and like lifetimes had. "So how's Theo?" I asked carefully. He blinked. "We broke up last year." "Oh. I'm sorry." He shook his head. "It was mutual. We outgrew each other. He wanted the suburbs. I wanted the stage. And the Batman suit," I teased. He laughed. "Still got it in my closet. Don't judge." "I'd never." A pause. "And you?" he asked. "Someone in your life?" I hesitated. "A few someones. Nothing that lasted." He nodded, not pressing. "Still writing?" "Always," I said. "Even when I hate it." "You were always good at it. And you were always good at seeing what I couldn't." Another pause. Longer this time. Heavy with something unspoken. "I missed you," he said. I looked at him. Really looked. He was older now. A little tired around the eyes. But still Liam. Still the boy in the Batman suit. "I missed you too," I whispered. We walked back to his place. Not because we planned it. Just because neither of us wanted to say goodbye yet. His apartment was tiny and cluttered and beautiful. Movie posters, plants, half-finished scripts pinned to corkboards. A life in motion. He poured us wine. We sat on the floor, backs against the couch, feet tangled under a throw blanket. And talked. About everything. And nothing. Eventually, the conversation slowed. Then stopped. He turned to me. "I used to wonder," he said, "if we had met later when we were braver, stronger, if we would have lasted." I stared into my glass. We met exactly when we were supposed to. But maybe now we know how to hold on without breaking things. He leaned closer. "I'm not asking to start over," he said. "But maybe we don't have to end completely." I looked at him. Heart raw. Walls lowered. "No masks," I said. "No pretending. No hiding." He nodded. And kissed me. It was slow. Tender. Not like the first time, where everything was urgency and fear. This was familiar. Intentional. Like he was rediscovering a song he used to love and realizing it still made his chest ache in the best way. We didn't rush anything. There was no label. No grand declarations. Just morning coffees. Inside jokes. Movie nights. Notes left on bathroom mirrors. And every once in a while, the Batman suit would make an appearance, mostly as a joke. But always with that same spark in his eyes. The world hadn't magically gotten easier. People still stared. Still whispered. But this time, we didn't flinch. We just kept walking. Together. 2 years later, we moved into a little house on the east side of Los Angeles. It had chipped paint, a lemon tree in the backyard, and a creaky porch swing that Liam fixed himself the first weekend we moved in. I had my writing desk by the window. He had his script binder stacked with post-it notes and scribbled stage directions. We called it the fortress, our own Batcave, minus the billion-dollar gadgets. Most mornings, we'd sit on the porch drinking coffee, watching the city wake up. Sometimes he'd wear the Batman robe his sister bought him as a joke. Sometimes I'd steal it just to make him laugh. Life wasn't perfect. There were bills, late nights, creative blocks, and days when anxiety felt like a second skin. But there was also laughter. Soft music. Quiet understanding. And love. God, there was so much love. One day, while we were walking back from the farmer's market, Liam stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. "What if we wrote something together?" he asked. I blinked. "Like a play?" He nodded. Something honest. Something about us. Is that allowed? He grinned. Who's gonna stop us? That night, we opened a blank Google Doc and titled it, Batman Wears Duct Tape, a Love Story. It wasn't about superheroes. It was about two scared kids who dared to see each other really see each other and how that changed everything. The show opened 6 months later in a local black box theater. It was raw. Messy. Vulnerable. And people loved it. They cried. Laughed. Came back the next night and brought friends. Some left notes at the stage door saying, I saw myself in this. It wasn't a blockbuster. It wasn't perfect. But it was ours. And that was enough. After the closing performance, Liam and I stood outside under the string lights, arms wrapped around each other. He whispered, I used to think love had to be big. Flashy. Something out of a movie. And now. He kissed my cheek. Now I think love looks a lot like you in pajama pants eating cereal at 2 a.m. I laughed. Sexy. The sexiest. We stood there a while longer, just holding on, the quiet wrapping around us like a favorite blanket. Then he asked, softly, do you still like this version of Batman? I smiled. I love him, I said. Because when I look at him, I see the first person who ever made me feel brave. Years passed. We grew. Changed. Built a life full of mundane miracles, IKEA furniture, dog-eared books, arguments about laundry, and kisses in the kitchen. We adopted a rescue dog named Alfred. He had one ear and a loud bark and insisted on sleeping between us every night. We took road trips. Got sunburned. Got caught in thunderstorms. Made playlists and bad jokes and memories we'd tell no one else. We fought, sometimes. Loved harder. And on our 10th anniversary, Liam pulled out a ring. No grand gesture. Just a quiet morning, 2 mugs of coffee, and the words, I still choose you. I cried. Said yes. Our wedding wasn't traditional. Jayla officiated, naturally. The Batman suit made an appearance not as formal wear, but hanging on a coat rack near the altar, a silent reminder of where it all began. And when we exchanged vows, I said. I didn't fall in love with Batman. I fell in love with the boy who wore duct tape and doubt and still showed up. You taught me that love isn't perfect, but it's brave. And that's enough. He whispered, always, and kissed me like it was the first time. Years from now, when our hair has gone gray and our knees complain every time we dance in the kitchen, I know I'll still remember that high school gym, that dumb Halloween dance, and the moment that changed everything. The moment he stood in front of me in that ridiculous suit and asked, do you like this version of Batman? And how that simple, strange, beautiful question cracked something open in me. Made me look closer. Made me feel more. Made me brave. Because sometimes, the smallest moments hold the loudest truths. And sometimes, love wears duct tape. And saves you anyway. The end. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.